Hey, how's it going? It's Craig. I'm out in the garage and today we're looking at a Sega Dreamcast. Let's take a look. Okay, so today we are looking at the Sega Dreamcast. This is console number 2 of the 3 things to send me. So we're going to have a look at this one. I believe it's got a laser issue. It did have something rattling in there as well, so we'll have a look at that when we open it up, just to make sure there's nothing loose inside of it. This one's a little bit scuffed up on the case and things. So we'll give it a clean up. It's never going to be a minty console, but it is hopefully it'll be a nice working console by the end of this video. This will be the first of the Play It Forward systems that I want to set up. So Play It Forward is my new idea. We'll come on to that later when we do the wrap up. Hopefully if we can get it working, this will be off to a new home in the future. Yeah, so I'm quite looking forward to this. I've never really had a Dreamcast. I was more Sony, PlayStation than Sega at that time, but they had so many really good examples of games on there that I just want to play. So I am quite looking forward to getting it set up and having a blast on it. I've only got one game here which I bought from CX. I haven't opened that yet. We'll do that in a bit. I've got I picked up an AV cable for it as well, and it's your standard figure of 8 power supply. So fingers crossed. This is just a pot adjustment for the DVD drive, or the GD drive, GDMU, GD-Rom. Yeah, that's what they call it. I don't know what the difference is. And I've looked into some of the mods for these. There's some crazy mods you can do. The GDMU, that's why I was coming to that. GDMU is an SD card reader that you can swap out the GD-Rom and put in an SD card reader, so you can play all your games on backup. So I might do that in the future as well. So yeah, nothing much more to say. I'm going to rip it apart. It's pretty simple. Strip down. I think you've got to take the modem off, and then there's 4 screws to open it up. And then we'll get down to the laser adjustments and things like that. Cool. Catch you in a bit. Okay, so I've just tried powering this up on the bench, and I'm not getting any power out of it at all. So no LEDs lighting up. It's plugged in still now. I can show you while I'm here, but nothing. So I'm going to need to take this apart, have a look inside. So it's not a simple laser fix, which good, makes a better video, and it gives me something to play around with. So because this is not a simple laser fix, it's probably going to be that I'm going to have to look at other elements of the system, see why it's shorted out or why it's not working. I'm still hopeful I can get it up and running, and I'll have a look at it now, take it apart and see what we can do. And I'll be back in a second. Let's take a look. Okay, so as we're not getting any power, we're going to open this up and take a look at what other issues there could be inside of it. It definitely needs a good clean, so I've got things to be getting on with anyway. So I unscrewed it, as you've seen earlier. The inside of a Sega Dreamcast is actually really good, isn't it? So if you think about it, that is your power supply there. So if that was a power brick like you use for an Xbox and things, that could be outside of the system. That element there is your GD-Rom, so your GD-Rom. So that's pretty cool. And then the main bit of it is underneath this, and it's tiny. So if they took that as a power brick, they could have made this system really small. Sega are actually really good at console making, and it's a shame they don't do it anymore. Okay, so the first things we're going to check on this is if we're getting power through this system, and the obvious one is this connector here and this fuse inside. So I'm going to check the fuse first of all, because obviously that's the fail-safe. If that fuse is gone, then that's why the system isn't going to work. So all we're going to do for checking the fuse is get our multimeter set up to continuity. So when I connect the two ends, we get continuity. It means that it's running through, so signal's passing through straight away. When we touch it on a fuse, we should, because the fuse wire connects the two, we should get continuity. So, okay, so that onto the one end, this onto the other end, and no continuity. So there's nothing going through that fuse. That fuse is gone. Yeah, 100%. I'll take it out, pop it out. Let's have a look. Move the Dreamcast out of the way. So this is why we're not getting any power. So if the fuse is gone, then yeah, that's definitely gone. So I'm touching both ends of that fuse with the continuity of these testers, and I'm not getting anything. So that should give me continuity straight away. Okay, so we're going to need to find one of those fuses. On my tray system, I've got fuses here, but I know they're all way too big. Look at the size difference on those compared to that. I think, oh, I've lost it now. I think these are all too big too. Yeah, and that's a standard house plug, UK plug fuse compared to it as well. So look at the size difference between the two of them. Okay, so I'm going to need to try and find out what amperage fuse that is and what size it is and get some new ones. I don't know whether I'm going to get that locally or not, but I'll try and have a look and see if I can find anything. Cool. Okay, so that was a bit of a quick fail. So plugged the system in, I'm not getting any power from it. First thing I checked was a tiny little 2 amp fuse. I don't have any of these in stock. I can see they sell them on Amazon with Prime, so I can get some ready for tomorrow to take another look at it. But without that fuse in there, we're never going to get any power. So I'm going to order a set of fuses to come for tomorrow. I might go and take a drive down to a local hardware shop and see if they've got anything as well. Then place the order on Amazon if they haven't got them. And then carry on with the system tomorrow once I've tested that out. So yeah, a little bit of a stop in the road, but there we go. We'll hopefully swap that fuse out and get up and running. Cool, catch you in a bit. Okay, so I've been out to the local hardware shop. The dog is making a fuss of me when I come back in, so I'm going to hold her for this section. No fuses, but I did buy a Marrow plant. I don't know why. We've been planting loads of things at the garden, and I bought some gunmetal grey spray and a tin of, well, 2 tins of gunmetal grey and a tin of Tough Stuff undercoat for a different project I'm working on for the arcade machines. So they're aside. But whilst I was down there, I had a bit of a brainwave. The other Dreamcast I've got somewhere around here, I'll dig it out now. The fuse on that one should be fine. So if I get that one out, I can test the fuse on that one, switch it over to this system, hopefully get this system up and running. And when my new fuses arrive, when I order them from Amazon, I can swap them over, and then we'll have 2 systems up and running. At least it doesn't stop me from working on this today then. So yeah, I'm going to go and find out the Dreamcast, swap those fuses over and crack on. Cool. Say bye. Okay, so I've managed to find the other one. So that's our one we're working on, and this is the other one. It needs a bit of a retro bite, but actually the case is in pretty decent condition other than a little bit of fade into it. They're quite scuffed, both of them. I think it was the thing with the plastic they were using on them. They weren't the hardest to wear in the plastics. I could spray them and do something with them, but I want to get them working first, so that's my priority today. So I'm going to try and power this one up. If this one powers up, I'm not even going to try a game or anything on it. I'm going to open it up and take that fuse out. I really want to focus on this one because this is the one that I want up and running. If that one, I can put the fuse into that one and then we'll see how it goes. Fingers crossed. Cool, catch you in a bit. Okay, so this is the second Dreamcast system I've got. That's the first one, so you can see the colour difference in them. This one's the one we're working on with a chip out of it. It's got a bit of a chip there. If I were to spray it, I'd probably fill that with a bit of resin or something and then spray it the whole system and see what we could do with it. But that's not our intention today. We're going to try and get it up and running. So this is the second one from the house. This one just needs a bit of a clean up and a retro bright, I think. So power, and we're getting power on it. I don't even know if there's a disc in it actually. There is. What's in there? I don't even know what that is. Nightmare Creatures 2. I have never heard of that. Okay, so there's a game in there. I have no idea what that is, but there's a game, and it's powering up, so I'm happy with that. Although I'm not going to test it, I'm going to take it apart now, take that fuse out, try it in the other one. I've got some fuses on order now from Amazon, so they'll be here over the next day or two. But I just want to eliminate the problem of that fuse in that other system before I waste any more time. Cool. Okay, so we plugged in the cheap AV cable and the power cable. I've swapped the fuse on this one now, and we're plugged into why can't I go up? There we go. Plugged into a CRT with the AV cable. So fingers crossed this doesn't blow that new fuse, otherwise there's something else wrong with it. Nothing. Okay, so there's something more than that fuse in this system that's gone. Oh, typical. Okay, back to route one and start testing other things. I'm going to test that fuse, make sure that hasn't blown now, because it could be that something in this is blowing the fuse every time. Oh, here we go again. Okay, so I now have the fuse out of the system, and it's blown. So that's the basically I've got two faulty Dreamcasts now because I've got two blown fuses. It's not a big issue on the other one. I can wait until my fuses come tomorrow off of Amazon, put a new fuse into that one, and I'm pretty confident that'll work. But this is obviously doing its job, so the fuse is blown because there's an issue elsewhere on this system, and the fuse is basically a safety to try and stop damaging anything else in here. So I do need to have a look into this board now, see what the issue is, see if there's anything else showing signs of wear. Have a look at the capacitors, look brand new on you, so it's not that I don't think it's a capacitor issue. But I'm going to take a look over the system, see why this fuse keeps blowing, and then come back to it. It's a bit of a shame because that means that now I've got two Dreamcasts without a fuse at the moment, but I ordered 150 assortment of fuses because I've only got a couple, as you seen in my tub earlier, so that'll keep me going anyway. So I've got 10 of these, so I've got 10 shots of getting this working without blowing all the bloody fuses in there. Yeah, so I'm on a bit of a standstill again now, so it does mean that I'm going to have to call it a day. Well, I'm not going to call it a day. I'm going to take a look over this system first of all, and then see what the issue is, see what is causing the fuse to blow, if I can find out what that is. And then once I've had a look over it, we'll try again with the new fuses tomorrow. Okay, cool. Catch you later. Okay, so I've got as far as I can on that system today. The two fuses are gone, so I've got no more fuses here. I've got a load on order. It's a little bit unsure why this is blowing, to be honest. So the only other things I've done on it is I noticed that there's a cracked piece of the PSU board. It was on the earth, so it wasn't like it was on a trace or anything, but there was a hairline crack across, and it's going from one of these pins, which is coming from the input of the power across to one of those pins that's powering the system. And it was a hairline crack there. It was showing continuity across it, so in theory it should be fine. But because it was a crack across it, I've put a jumper wire across, which I'll show you on the system anyway. The rest of this looks pretty good. I've checked over it, it all looks fine. There's one pin right in the middle, and I think it's from the coil. One pin right in the middle, which is never had solder on it. It's on the earth again, or the ground, or whatever you want to call it. But it doesn't look like it's ever had solder on it from the factory. So I'm not sure whether I should solder that and ground it out, or whether I should leave it as it is. For now I'm going to leave it as it is, test this out and see what we can do. I've heard lots of stories about these, so obviously looking at some information around them after finding out this one was faulty. A lot of people replace them with a PSU, which is a lot slimmer, new modern PSU inside your Dreamcast. It's a lot lower heat as well. So I might look into that and swap it out entirely and do a bigger mod on this system. Because I'm going to test this again with a new fuse just to make sure. If that works, then I might keep it. I'm not sure yet. The other things I've looked at, the motherboard. So the motherboard generally in really good condition, very clean, and I just run across a couple of those ground traces on the outside just because they looked a little bit dirty and a little bit worn out. So I put some flux across them and then just heated them up with a heat gun. I've taken the 2 pads off the CPUs. I'll put new thermal paste on those before I put it all back together. And on the underside as well, there's 2 spots where there's thermal pads on them. They don't generally hold that well anyway, and I would rather put some thermal paste on those, and I've got some here. The other thing I've looked at was the modem. So the modem was the one thing that had some quite visible corrosion and things to it when I originally took it off. Opening that up, there was a number of points in there which certainly wouldn't have been making any kind of contact, so I've cleaned it all up with isopropyl. Nothing seems to be damaged in there. I don't even know whether you need to plug this in to power the system up. I'm guessing not. So I might try it without it, just in case there was something in this that caused the issue with it before. But I don't think that's the issue either. I think it's that power supply, if I'm totally honest. So I'm going to wait for the fuses to come tomorrow. I'll swap one of those fuses out for, well, put one into this system. I'll rebuild it, test it. If it blows the fuse again, then I'm going to look at maybe putting the power supply from the working system across into the faulty one. If that works in the faulty system, then I know it's the power supply. If that blows the fuse in the faulty system, then I know it's something else on that system that's gone and causing the issue on the power supply as well. So I'm going to a little bit of a wait now, wait for parts to arrive, and then we'll do a little bit more digging and see what we can get to. Cool. Okay, new fuse installed. I'm going to see if this area has any bangs, pops, smoke, anything else when I put the new fuse in and power this bad boy on. So I've got 2 things that I would hope would happen. Is either this LED lights up and we get some power and the laser starts to move maybe, or I don't know. It could go horribly wrong, but there we go. Here we go. Whoa! Here we go. Oh! That fuse is gone. Okay, so there's something else issue with this. There's no point in me putting new fuses in this. There's some other area which is gone on this board, so I'm going to strip that power supply unit out. I'm going to put the other power supply unit in here, and I'm going to test that onto this system to see if with the other power supply in here and a new fuse, whether this power's on, so then I can eliminate this power supply as the issue, or whether the motherboard on this system or something else on this system is causing that problem. Oh, that was good. Cool, catch you in a sec. Okay, so I swapped the power supplies over. We've got a new fuse in this one. So this is now the faulty system motherboard, GD-Rom, etc., but with the power supply from my other Dreamcast. So if I power this on now and we get the same pop that we had earlier, then the motherboard on this system is gone, and or there's some issue with it anyway. It's causing that fuse to blow. If, for example, if on the other hand, sorry, we power this on and we get an LED and we get some active light out of this system, then we know there's just that power supply gone on the other one, and that means that we can swap that power supply out. There are loads of new examples of power supplies that we can use, so that's an option. That's a viable option. Okay, so moment of truth. We might get another pop. I'm going to try and give you a good angle of it. Okay, so fingers on the button, and oh, no pop that time, but nothing. Interesting. Okay, so I just popped the plug open and that fuse is blown as well. So that pop that we had earlier blew my fuse, and it blew the fuse on the board. So no wonder it didn't work just then. So now I've got a replacement fuse, and then I've got a 5 amp rather than a 3. I'm gonna pop that back in the plug and then we'll give it another go. Go. Okay, so here we go. Make sure that's off. Plug that in. Moment of truth. So here we go again. Are we going to get a flash of light and another blown plug and possibly blown fuse on the system again, or we're going to get a working system? Woohoo! There we go. So we have life. Cool. So it is that power supply. Wow, that must have been some issue with that power supply to blow that fuse plug as well. But yeah, we got that, and if I hold down this switch at the back, it's not going to kick the DVD in, but awesome. I'm really chuffed with that. Yeah, so we've got life now. Whether that's working, I don't know, but at least I know now I can just order another power supply from the other system, and this one is up and running with the power at the moment anyway. So okay, cool, that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. Okay, so I'm back. I've swapped the board over, so this panel here and the fan, as you can see, is loose at the moment. I've taken them from the other system, plugged them into here, and plug the power supply back in. Obviously unplug it whilst I'm working on it. Moment of truth again. No way, we got, oh, amazing. Wait there, I haven't got my telly on. Okay, so I'm getting a spinning fan now, and look at that. Amazing. That's so good. Okay, so I'm really chuffed with that. So now I think that's an issue with the fan. After all that bloody hell messing around. Okay, so I'm absolutely pleased with that, so pleased with that, because I honestly thought this motherboard was going to be gone and then we'd be back in the same position as before. Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so that does mean that now I've got one system where I need to figure out whether it's the control ports of the fan. But the fact that I've now got this Dreamcast up and working with the power supply and the fan unit means that I can buy 2 elements for my other Dreamcast when I do that in the future. So my main focus is to get this one working first of all, because this is the one I want to pass on to the community anyway. So I want to get this one up and running. The other one I will pimp out with a load of other kit, and that's for a future video. That's for me to work on another time. I want to do a Pico PSU. I want to do a silent fan. As you probably hear that it's a little bit noisy on there. And I want a GD-Rom mod in there as well, which replaces the GD-Rom with a memory card reader. So I'm absolutely chuffed. I honestly didn't think that was going to be working after swapping that over. Out of all the things I've done, so I've pretty much switched out all the elements in there except for that fan or the last piece, and yeah, showing up on the screen now is the time and date select, so that's looking great. I might order the couple of parts for this anyway. I'm not in a rush to complete it, but I'm really chuffed that it's working now. I say it's working, I haven't run a disc or anything on it. But I might even change the battery out on it and the resistor and things, just so it's got that little bit of a longer life, so whoever has it next hasn't got to worry about those. They're only about £3-4 on eBay. I'll order a kit and get that installed. Oh yes, I'm really chuffed. As you can probably tell, I thought this video was going to be a trash video and it's going to be end up with me pulling my hair out and nothing working. So yeah, the fact that it's up and running to this level has really pleased me. I'm gonna get a bit more work on this now. I'm gonna try and get find the control pad. I think I got one in my box. Once I got that control pad out, I'm going to pop a disc in there, see if I can get this disc to read with this GD-Rom, and then I've got the other GD-Rom. I might need to do a pot adjustment on either of those or none of those, depending on how they're set at the moment. So cool, I'm really looking forward to doing this now. I've got no screws or anything in this at the moment, so I'm going to fiddle around with it, get it all sorted first, and then I'm going to put it all back together, there is one thing that I've read online that you've got to be careful with. If you put the wrong gold screws, I think it is, that go hold the GD-Rom in place, there's 2 different length gold screws. If you put the wrong ones in, they short out on the motherboard and then you'll blow the motherboard. So we're going to make sure we don't do that. Cool. I'm going to get on with playing around with this. I'm going to put the cover on it, and then I'm going to put a game in there, see if we can boot it up, and we'll go from there. Catch you in a bit. Okay, so I put the shell back on it just loosely. I've only put 2 screws in the back of it just to hold it in place, because there's a little latch at the back and I didn't want to just rest the shell on there. And I found my control pad. It's a pretty decent condition actually. I bought it at the Bristol Gaming Fair back last October, I think it was. I never tested it because I never plugged it into a Dreamcast before, so I plugged it into port 1 on here. I don't have the VDMU, I think it's called, the memory unit. I don't have one of them. I'll have to buy one of them for myself at some point. But for testing, we should be able to get away with this. To test it out, I have a CEX delivery. Not opened it yet, so let's open it on camera, see what the quality is like of this packaging. So again, a lot of people are moaning about CEX packaging things in this kind of packaging at the moment. I imagine it's similar to Amazon. They're trying to cut down on waste and that, but doesn't hold well for dual cases and things. So my invoice there, yeah, here is the one. So bubble in a jiffy bag with inside of that, and we have a cracked case, which I was expecting, to be totally honest. Cracked case, Dreamcast of F355 Challenge. I didn't have a clue what the model was, what game it was. Opening it up, we've got instruction manual, and disc is there. Is that a single disc game? Yeah. I don't know whether, this is how little knowledge I have about Dreamcast. I don't know whether they have multi-disc games or anything, but so it's pretty complete, manual and everything there. Disc, let's have a look at the quality on that. Yeah, it's in nice condition. So we're gonna pop. I'm not gonna put that back in the case yet. God, this case is falling apart. I'm not gonna put that back in the case. I'm gonna put it into the system, and you get to see me booting this for the first time. So hopefully you can see it on camera. My camera's gonna keep moving because it's on face track. I'm gonna pop this open. Pop in the disc. I'm gonna power it on. So this is the non-working system, and there's, hopefully you can see on the screen behind me, we're booting up now. Will it boot into the game is the next question. Okay, so I'm gonna mad flicker on this. Okay, so we're into the menu anyway. Okay, so we're gonna play the game. Insert game disc. Is that my dodgy case install, or is that the disk drive? So a disk is definitely in there. I'm gonna hold it down this time. See what it says, anything, if you can read it. We're waiting. We need the disc spinning. Doesn't seem like we're getting anything, does it? Okay, so insert game disc. It's not reading that disc, is it? Okay, let's, for sake of it, I've got that other game that I had here, so I'm going to take that one out. Okay, so I had to cut away, my phone rang. So that game that we just bought from CEX is not working, the F355 Challenge. I've got this other one, as I mentioned, came in one of the other Dreamcasts that I've picked up. Let's give this one a go. I've heard certain Dreamcast GD-ROMs are a little bit fiddly with the media that it picks up. So we'll see if this one works. If this works, then we'll still need to adjust the pot because it's not reading out of the disc, but I just want to eliminate whether both discs are not reading or not first of all. Insert game disc. Okay, so that's not reading either. So I'm going to need to adjust this GD-Rom, the pot on it, just to make sure that the laser is a decent quality so it's reading the discs. Okay, let's cut away and do that. Then we'll come back to try and get the game to boot. Cool. Okay, this is going to be really awkward to film, but we're going to try it anyway. I'm going to unplug the power off of this and pop this behind. Some things you're not going to see on camera, other things you will, and it's quite awkward to film. So what I'm going to do is show you at the top. We're going to push this laser right to the back. The reason we're doing that is that when we take this off now, we want to make sure that the ribbon cable at the back of it has got the room that we can lift it over and stack it on the top. This cable on the right here is held under with two little clips. You unclip that and make sure it's free as well, because that's going to help it move. Then all we're going to do is I'm going to put a piece of tissue onto the case that's behind it. Then you're going to lift your GD-Rom up and flip it over, and then you can see the pot adjustment here. So I'm going to zoom right in, hopefully we get a focus on it. Okay, so that pot adjustment on the left, as you can see here now, is the adjuster we're going to want to turn. So as you can see at the moment, it's pointing almost up to 12 o'clock, down to 6, and across to 3 and 9 if you were to do it as a clock. We probably want to make a tiny adjustment to this, so it's turning it maybe quarter of a turn. And this is going to be really hard to capture on camera because one, it's on a really funny angle, and two, my camera is right in the middle of where I need to be adjusting. I'm going to try and do it now with a really small detail screwdriver bit. I'm going to see if I can get a small Phillips to do it on the first instance. If that doesn't work, then we'll have to have a look at what else we've got available. Okay, so hopefully you can see this now. It's going to be a little bit of an awkward thing to film, but hopefully you can see that we've got our pot adjuster here. I'm going to hold the back of the laser because you're going to need to put a little bit of pressure on there, and then you turn in to the right just a very small amount. So it's about, I would say I do it about a quarter of a turn on this one, and we'll test that and see how we go. It shouldn't be too much of a turn, I don't think. You're not adjusting this laser by a massive amount, so it should only be a quick adjustment to that. So what I'm going to do now is, rather than rebuild it, I'm literally just going to pop the laser back over, and we're going to test it without the cover on. Cool. Okay, so I've just flipped the laser back over. We're going to pop on our Ferrari game first of all. That's the new name for it, Ferrari game. We'll turn our TV on so we get the menu up. Okay, so I've got the menu on the TV now. Okay, so I'm going to have to try and do this one-handed, so I'm going to hold down this to get the disc to spin. And it says on the screen, please wait while the disc is being checked. Oh my god, there we go. So it's booting. So I've never seen this game boot yet, so first time Ferrari game. Now load in. Oh, this is going to be so hard to do one-handed, but I'm going to do it at 60 Hz. I don't have a memory card. Start. Cool. So that game's running. I'm really chuffed with that. I'll try on the other game now just to make sure it's not a fluke with this one, and then we're going to give it all a look over and make sure everything's good. Okay, so we can see that's definitely working. Cool. I'm gonna let go of the disc on that. Come back to the main menu. Pop the disc out. I'm gonna pop on the Creatures one, Nightmare Creatures 2. Pop that on to see if this boots too. Just to make sure it wasn't a fluke with that one disc. Not working. Why are you not working? Ah, it's booted now. Okay, so I don't think it's a laser adjustment. I think it's probably just because I've got the cover off the Dreamcast and it's getting a bit of interference with the light and everything on there. Okay, so that's boot in as well. Cool, so rather than boot all the way into this and show this, I'm going to take this apart, clean it up and do some other items to it before we package it up and get rid of it. Cool! Okay guys, that has been a bit of a mission to get up and running, but I'm pleased to say if I power this on behind me now, it's all up and running, it's all working. So it wasn't just that one adjustment to the pots, you had to really tweak it and test it a couple of times. So I ended up turning it, I think originally I was aiming to turn it for a quarter of a turn, nowhere near that. I think you're turning it just a tiny fraction of a turn each time. Test it with your games, just keep going over and over and over with it until you get the right thing, the right balance for it. So at the moment it's reading my Ferrari game, as it's called now. As you can see, it's running and it's working, it's loading the disc and everything else. And I tested the other game as well and it's working fine, so I'm pretty chuffed with that. I managed to get this back from the dead. So the things we've been through on this, obviously we've taken it all apart, given it all a clean, standard. We then found that we had a faulty power supply unit, so I'm going to need to buy another power supply unit for my other system. I'm taking the one out of that and put it in here, so that was working. Then we were blowing the fuses, so I swapped those fuses out, and oh no, that was the old power supply. Man, it's been such a long journey. So the fuses were blowing on the old power supply, not on this one. So we swapped that power supply out, put the new fuse and everything into this one. That got us to the point where we switched on and we got the orange light, but no fan turning. So I played around with it a bit more, changed over the fan on from one system to the other, plugged that in, still the same orange light but no fan turning. Then I swapped over the whole controller board and the fan, and it's working. So once we got that orange light on there and the fan was spinning, that got us into the menu so we could play around with the Dreamcast, which was good, but it wasn't booting any discs. So to boot the discs, then we had to adjust the pot. That pot adjustment was quite fiddly, we had to do a couple of times, and then we're up and running. So this is running now. I haven't got a case on it, I've literally got something holding down the lid detector. I want to show you this. So this is the case. I've taken the sticker off the top of it, but you can probably see the amount of scratches and scuffs on that. It's not this part, it's the bottom part of it. The bottom part of the case has got a chip out of it as well. The intention is, once I've got this all up and running, I'm going to give it away, but I don't want to give away something that is all scratched and everything. So my next idea is that I take this apart. There's lots of internals in here which need to come out. A simple retro bright is not going to do it. Some of these scratches are quite deep, so I think I'm going to have to sand and spray this. I've got a bit of experience spraying from doing other projects, and my scooter I sprayed with a professional spray setup. I'll use rattle cans for this. I won't use a proper spray setup because that means I've got to buy a couple of litres of paint and I don't need it. So I'll have a look at a nice colour scheme, do the top probably one colour and then the base another colour just to make it stand out a bit, I think. The biggest issue, I think, I've got that decal off the top which I can put into the replacement depending on what colour setup I got. Because those ones on the front, the Sega and the powered by Windows CE, but I don't think I would ever, or compatible with Microsoft Windows CE, but nobody wants to admit to the powered by compatible with Windows CE. That's an awful statement to give out. So yeah, I'm going to take a look at that. I'm going to sand this down, clean it up, probably might even have to use some automotive filler just to fill some of the scratches because they're quite deep on there. Give it a tidy up, and then I might do some LED mods and other things to the system as well before I finish it up. So this is the end of this video. I'll be back in the next couple of days or weeks to update on how I've got on with the case, and then at the end of it I'm going to give this system away. I'm going to give this away as part of my new series that I want to kick off, so keep watching, subscribe to my channel if you're watching this for the first time, because you might be able to get your hands onto this system once it's complete. Okay, cool, thanks for watching and catch you soon.